The gunshot that changed everything echoed through the dusty streets of Copper Creek, Arizona Territory, 1885. 30 seconds later, Tessa Parker was running for her life, the hem of her soiled dress clutched in trembling fingers as she fled the saloon where she'd worked for the last miserable year. Behind her, a man lay dead. The silver-haired gambler who tried to force himself on her had drawn his gun when she'd resisted. She'd only meant to push him away. She never intended to struggle so fiercely that his weapon would discharge into his own chest. But intentions mattered little now. A woman with her reputation would hang for such a thing, evidence be damned. The moon cast long shadows as Tessa darted between buildings, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. At 24, she'd already lived several lifetimes of hardship. Orphaned at 16, seduced and abandoned at 18, and forced into saloon work to survive her past, was a collection of broken promises and desperate choices. She reached the livery stable and slipped inside, the familiar smell of hay and horses offering momentary comfort. Tessa had always been good with horses. It was people who had proven untrustworthy. She moved swiftly toward the back stall where she knew the stable hand sometimes slept. If she could borrow his coat, perhaps take a horse. "You planning on stealing, miss?" A deep voice came from the shadows. Tessa froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. I just—" The words died in her throat as a tall figure stepped into a shaft of moonlight streaming through the stable window. Lucas Ryder leaned against the stall door, his expression unreadable beneath the brim of his worn cowboy hat. "You're the girl from the silver dollar, the one who sings sometimes." It wasn't a question. Tessa's eyes darted toward the door. "I need to leave town. Now." "That have something to do with the commotion I just heard. Sheriff's deputy was running that way mighty quick." Lucas pushed his hat back, revealing features that might have been handsome if not set in such a serious expression. "Please," she whispered, hating the desperation in her voice. "I didn't mean for it to happen." Something in Lucas's eyes changed. He studied her for a long moment before nodding once. "My ranch is 3 days' ride north. I need someone to cook and keep house. Pay isn't much, but you'd have a roof and 3 squares. Tessa blinked in confusion. "You're offering me work. You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said simply. "Been watching you at that saloon. You don't belong there." Before she could respond, shouts echoed from the street. Lucas moved quickly, saddling 2 horses with practiced efficiency. He tossed her a worn duster coat. "Put this on. We're leaving now." Within minutes, they were riding out of town, keeping to the shadows. Tessa expected pursuit at any moment, but Lucas guided them through a creek bed that would hide their tracks. When they finally stopped to rest the horses hours later, Tessa found her voice again. "Why are you helping me? What do you really want?" No man had ever offered her anything without expecting something in return. Lucas looked at her steadily. "My mother was forced to work in a place like that. Nobody helped her." He adjusted his saddle. "I don't need anything from you except honest work at my ranch. You're free to leave any time." Tessa didn't know whether to believe him, but she had no other options. As dawn broke over the desert, they continued northward, away from her past and toward an uncertain future. The Ryder Ranch was smaller than Tessa had imagined, but well maintained. A modest 2-story house stood near a barn and corral. Several cattle grazed in the distance, and a small garden plot showed signs of neglect. "It's not much," Lucas said as he helped her dismount, "but it's paid for. Been running it alone since my father passed 2 years back." "It's lovely," Tessa said honestly. After years of dingy saloon rooms, the open landscape felt like freedom. Lucas showed her to a small bedroom with simple furnishings. "This was my mother's sewing room. Make yourself at home. Kitchen stocked, but I've been living on coffee and beans mostly." That evening, Tessa prepared a proper meal from the supplies she found. Lucas ate without speaking much, but his appreciation was evident in the way he cleaned his plate. When he finally looked up, something like surprise flickered across his features. "Thank you. Been a while since I had a home-cooked meal." Tessa nodded, uncomfortable with gratitude. "I should thank you for helping me. You going to tell me what happened back in Copper Creek?" She tensed, fork hovering over her plate. "Would you make me leave if I did?" Lucas considered this. "Depends on what you did, I suppose." Tessa set down her utensils, suddenly not hungry. "A man tried to force himself on me. We struggled and his gun went off." She met Lucas's gaze directly. "I didn't murder him, but no one would believe that." "I believe it," Lucas said simply. "And you're safe here." For the first time in years, Tessa slept without fear. Days turned into weeks as Tessa settled into life at the Ryder ranch. She threw herself into cooking, cleaning, and tending the garden, grateful for work that didn't involve painted smiles and unwanted touches. Lucas worked from dawn till dusk with the cattle and horses, often returning exhausted but never complaining. They developed a routine, sharing meals in comfortable silence. Lucas wasn't one for conversation, but Tessa didn't mind. She'd had enough of men's empty words to last a lifetime. One evening, as summer heat gave way to a cooler breeze, Lucas returned with a package wrapped in brown paper. "Picked this up from town," he said, setting it on the table before her. Tessa unwrapped it to find fabric simple cotton in a cheerful blue pattern. "I noticed your dress is wearing thin," Lucas explained, suddenly interested in removing his boots. "Thought you might want to make something new." The unexpected kindness brought tears to her eyes. "Thank you," she managed. No one had given her a gift without expectations in years. Lucas looked up, clearly uncomfortable with her emotion. "It's nothing, just practical." That night, Tessa lay awake wondering about the quiet cowboy who had saved her. She'd caught him watching her sometimes, but never with the predatory gaze she'd grown accustomed to at the saloon. It was something different, something that made her chest tighten in a not unpleasant way. As summer faded into fall, the ranch began to feel like home. Tessa's garden flourished, providing fresh vegetables for their meals. She learned to make butter from the milk of Lucas's 2 cows, and even helped deliver a foal one stormy night, working alongside Lucas with a competence that surprised them both. "You're good with animals," he commented as they watched the newborn filly take her first wobbly steps. Tessa smiled. "They don't judge." Lucas studied her face in the lantern light. "Neither do I." Their eyes held for a moment before Tessa looked away, unaccustomed to the warmth spreading through her chest. The first snow came early that year, blanketing the ranch in pristine white. Tessa woke to find Lucas already outside, clearing paths to the barn and bringing extra firewood to the house. When he came inside, his cheeks were ruddy from cold. "Storm's coming," he said, stamping snow from his boots. "A bad one." They worked together to prepare checking supplies, securing the animals, boarding vulnerable windows. Lucas showed Tessa how to bank the fire to keep it burning through the night. Their hands brushed as they worked, sending an unexpected jolt through her. That night, as wind howled around the house, Tessa found Lucas in the study poring over a ledger. "Is something wrong?" she asked, noticing the furrow in his brow. He hesitated before answering. "Bank loans coming due, cattle prices are down, I'll manage. Is there anything I can do to help?" Lucas looked up, his expression softening. "You already have. Place hasn't run this well in years." Before she could respond, a tremendous crash came from outside. Lucas was on his feet immediately, grabbing his coat. "Stay here," he ordered, but Tessa followed anyway, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. The barn door had blown open, and snow was piling inside. Together they fought the wind to secure it, working in harmony without needing words. When they finally succeeded, both were breathless and covered in snow. Lucas turned to her, ready to scold her for not staying inside, but stopped short. Instead, he reached out, brushing snow from her hair with unexpected gentleness. "You're freezing," he said softly. "I'm fine," she insisted, though she was shivering back in the house. Lucas built up the fire while Tessa made hot coffee. They sat before the hearth, the storm raging outside contrasting with the quiet warmth between them. "Why did you really help me that night?" Tessa finally asked the question that had lingered for months. Lucas stared into the flames. "Told you, my mother." "There's more," she pressed gently. "I've seen how you look at me sometimes." His hands tightened around his cup. "I noticed you long before that night. Not just your beauty, though, there's that." A flush crept up his neck. "It was your eyes. They didn't match your smile at that saloon, like you were trapped somewhere you didn't belong." Tessa swallowed hard. "And where do I belong, Lucas?" He met her gaze, something vulnerable in his expression. "Wherever you choose, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't hope it would be here." The confession hung between them, delicate and honest. Tessa felt something long dormant stirring within her, hope perhaps, or something more dangerous. Before she could respond, Lucas stood abruptly. "It's late. We should rest." Tessa watched him retreat to his room, confusion and longing warring within her. She was beginning to care for this quiet, honorable man, and that terrified her more than any storm. Winter settled over the ranch, bringing short days and long nights. Tessa and Lucas fell into new routines, spending evenings by the fire. She mended clothes while he read aloud from one of his few books. Sometimes they talked, Lucas sharing stories of his childhood, Tessa carefully revealing small pieces of her past. She learned he'd been engaged once, to a banker's daughter who couldn't bear the thought of ranch life. He learned she'd once dreamed of being a schoolteacher before circumstances stole that future. Neither pushed for more than the other was willing to share. December brought Christmas preparations. Lucas returned from town with a small pine tree, and Tessa decorated it with paper stars and dried orange slices. On Christmas Eve, they exchanged simple gifts. She had knitted him a scarf from yarn found in her room, while he presented her with a leather-bound journal. "For your thoughts," he explained. "You seem to have a lot of them." That night, as snowflakes danced outside the window, Lucas asked her to sing. "The men at the saloon used to quiet down when you did," he admitted. "I always wanted to hear better." Hesitantly, Tessa began a ballad her father had taught her long ago. Her voice, unused to singing for pleasure rather than coins, grew stronger with each verse. When she finished, Lucas was watching her with undisguised admiration. "You have a gift," he said simply. It didn't feel like one at the saloon. Nothing good stays untarnished in places like that. His voice held old anger. "My mother had a beautiful singing voice too." "What happened to her?" Tessa asked gently. Lucas's jaw tightened. "Consumption. Worked herself to death trying to support us after my father's accident laid him up for years." He stared into the fire. "I was 15 when she passed. Pa was never the same." Tessa reached across the space between them, taking his hand. It was the first time she had initiated contact between them. "I'm sorry." He looked at their joined hands, then at her face. "Tessa." Whatever he might have said was interrupted by a knock at the door. Both froze. No one visited the isolated ranch, especially in winter. Lucas moved to the window, peering outside. His posture stiffened. "It's Sheriff Mills from Riverton." Panic seized Tessa's chest. "Has he come for me?" "Stay calm. Let me handle this." Lucas squeezed her hand before releasing it. "Remember, you're my housekeeper. You've been here for months." The sheriff was a burly man with a thick mustache and suspicious eyes. He stamped snow from his boots as Lucas invited him inside. "Evening, Ryder. Sorry to intrude on Christmas Eve." His gaze landed on Tessa, narrowing slightly. "Madam." "Sheriff Mills, this is Miss Parker, my housekeeper. Tessa, would you mind making some coffee?" Grateful for the excuse to retreat, Tessa moved to the kitchen, her hands trembling as she worked. She could hear the men's voices but couldn't make out their words. When she returned with the coffee, the sheriff was examining a wanted poster. "So you haven't seen this woman? Witness says she fled Copper Creek back in July. Killed a man." Lucas studied the paper. "Can't say I have." "What she wanted for, murder, shot a prominent businessman during a robbery attempt." The sheriff accepted the coffee Tessa offered. "Thank you, miss." "That's not what happened," Tessa blurted before she could stop herself. Both men looked at her sharply. "Beg your pardon?" the sheriff asked. Lucas stepped in smoothly. "Tessa's from Copper Creek originally, probably heard gossip about the case." The sheriff's interest sharpened. "That's so. What did you hear, miss?" Tessa forced her voice to remain steady. "Only that the man who died had a reputation for mistreating women. Some said the girl was defending herself. Convenient story for a murderess." The sheriff sipped his coffee, studying her face. "When did you say you came to work for Mr. Ryder?" "April," Lucas answered before she could. "Been here since spring, hasn't she, Jasper?" He addressed this to his cattle dog, who wagged his tail at the mention of his name. The sheriff didn't look convinced but finished his coffee and stood. "Well, I won't keep you on Christmas Eve. Just doing my rounds, checking with all the outlying ranches. Murderer could be hiding anywhere." Lucas walked him to the door. "Let me know if there's anything else I can do, Sheriff." When he returned, Tessa was shaking. "He knows," she whispered. "He recognized me from the poster. He suspects, maybe." Lucas's voice was steady, "but he has no proof. Your hair's different, you're thinner, and the poster's not a good likeness anyway. What if he comes back with a warrant?" Lucas took her hands in his. "Then we'll deal with it together. But for tonight, you're safe." That night, Tessa couldn't sleep. The sheriff's visit had brought her past crashing back, reminding her of what she was running from and what Lucas would face for harboring her. By dawn, she had made a decision. Lucas found her in the kitchen, a small bundle of belongings at her feet, going somewhere. His voice was carefully neutral. "I have to leave." Tessa couldn't meet his eyes. "I'm putting you in danger by staying. That's not your decision to make." "Yes, it is." She finally looked up, her resolve strengthening. "You've done enough for me, risked enough. I won't be responsible for ruining your life too." Lucas stepped closer. "And if I said your leaving would ruin my life?" The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Tessa's heart stuttered. "You don't know who I really am, what I've done." "I know exactly who you are." His voice softened. "You're the woman who sings to the chickens when you think no one's listening, who saved my best mare and her foal during that difficult birth, who makes biscuits that taste like my mother's. I worked in a saloon, Lucas, and I don't care." His hands came to rest on her shoulders. "Whatever you did before, whatever choices you made to survive, they don't define you. The sheriff will come back," she insisted, even as her resolve weakened under his touch. "Let him. I'll tell him the truth, that I believe in your innocence, and I'll stand by you." Tears welled in Tessa's eyes. "Why would you do that?" Lucas's hands moved to cup her face, his touch gentle. "Because I love you, Tessa Parker. Have since you stood in my barn that night, scared but still fighting." The confession broke something open inside her. "I don't deserve that love. It's not about deserving, it's about choosing. And I choose you, your past, your present, whatever future we might build." His thumb brushed away a tear. "Now you have to choose too." Tessa looked into his eyes and saw everything she'd never dared hope for: acceptance, respect, love. Slowly, she leaned forward until their foreheads touched. "I choose you too," she whispered. "I love you, Lucas Ryder." Their first kiss was tender, a promise exchanged without words. When they parted, Lucas smiled a rare, full smile that transformed his serious face. "Merry Christmas, Tessa." "Merry Christmas, Lucas." The winter thawed into spring, bringing new life to the ranch and to Tessa's heart. She and Lucas worked side by side, their love growing stronger with each passing day. Though they remained cautious when traveling to town, life settled into a sweet rhythm of shared work and stolen kisses. In March, Lucas received word that cattle prices were rising again. With careful management and Tessa's help reducing expenses, the ranch began to prosper. They added a new bull to their herd, expanded the garden, and repaired the fence lines together. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, Lucas took Tessa riding to a hilltop overlooking the property. They dismounted near an old oak tree, and Lucas spread a blanket on the ground. "This was my favorite spot as a boy," he said, helping her sit. "Used to come up here and dream about what the ranch could become someday." "It's beautiful," Tessa agreed, leaning against him as they watched the sunset. "What did you dream it would be?" "Bigger, mostly. More cattle, better horses," he chuckled. "I was a practical child. But lately my dreams have changed." "How so?" Lucas turned to face her, suddenly serious. "Now I dream of children running through the fields, a wife singing in the kitchen, a family, Tessa. Our family." Her breath caught as he reached into his pocket, producing a simple gold band. "I'm not good with fancy words, but I love you more than I thought possible. Will you marry me, Tessa? Make this ranch a home with me?" Joy bubbled up inside her, bright and clean. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." The kiss they shared sealed more than a proposal. It was a promise of a future neither had dared imagine before finding each other. They married in April, a small ceremony performed by the traveling preacher. Only a few neighbors attended, but it was perfect in its simplicity. Tessa wore a dress she had made from the blue fabric Lucas had given her months before, with wildflowers in her hair. That night, as husband and wife, they discovered each other with tenderness and passion. Tessa, who had known only the mechanical transactions of the saloon, found healing in Lucas's reverent touch, in the way he treasured rather than took. Summer brought unexpected news. Sheriff Mills had been replaced after an investigation revealed corruption. The new sheriff reviewed Tessa's case, and based on testimony from other saloon girls about the dead man's violent history, officially ruled the death self-defense. Though they remained cautious, a weight lifted from both their shoulders. "You're free," Lucas said when the letter arrived confirming the decision. Tessa smiled, her hand resting on her slightly rounded belly. "I've been free since the day you found me in that stable." In November, their daughter was born, Sarah Elizabeth Ryder, named for both their mothers. Lucas wept when he first held her, this tiny miracle with her mother's eyes and her father's serious expression. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She is," Tessa agreed, exhausted but radiantly happy. "Our new beginning." As winter returned to the ranch, bringing them full circle to where their love had first blossomed, Tessa often found herself watching Lucas with their daughter. He sang to her when he thought no one was listening, told her stories about the ranch she would someday inherit, promised her a life filled with love and security. On Christmas Eve, 1 year after they had first acknowledged their feelings, they sat before the fire, Sarah sleeping peacefully in her cradle nearby. Lucas had his arm around Tessa, her head resting on his shoulder. "Did you ever imagine we'd be here?" he asked softly. "When you ran into my stable that night," Tessa shook her head. "I was just trying to survive. I never dreamed I could be happy again, certainly not loved. You thought your past made you unworthy, Lucas said, kissing her forehead. I'm grateful every day that you let me show you otherwise. You built me a future when I couldn't see past my shame. Tessa looked up at him, her heart full. You gave me this family, this life. We built it together, Lucas corrected gently, and we'll keep building it day by day. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the land in pristine white, a clean slate, a fresh beginning. Inside, wrapped in the warmth of love hard-won and deeply cherished, Tessa and Lucas held each other close, their daughter sleeping beside them, their future stretching before them like an endless horizon. For Tessa Parker Ryder, who had once believed herself beyond redemption, the greatest gift wasn't just being saved that desperate night, it was discovering that she had always been worthy of love. And in Lucas's arms, in the home they had created together, she had finally found where she truly belonged.